The L462 generation Discovery arrived in showrooms in 2017 after its reveal at the 2006 Paris Motor Show. The fifth iteration of the Disco model made a major departure from the previous generation in that it used a monocoque chassis. The model has since become one of the most challenging cars for the group to position, and sales have reflected this. The Discovery 3 and 4 was adored for its boxy, rugged look and dynamics, but the fifth generation was forced to walk a tough line. Not as luxurious as a Range Rover, not as rugged as a Defender, and without a unique selling point compared to either. The new Defender has 7 seats, and the Discovery is on the exact same D7U platform as the previous L405 generation Range Rover. This wasn't a bad thing, and it was claimed to save up to 480 kilograms or 1,060 pounds over the previous generation. And the Range Rover chassis was built to conquer off-road terrain in comfort, but for buyers that want the levers and manual controls over their driving experience, the Discovery was, in some ways unfairly, overlooked, chiefly because a locking rear differential and low-range transfer case can be specified and used, although it may be limited to specific trims, and always without the clunk of a big knob, like I know some of you enjoy getting your hands on. 7 seats are sold throughout the lifespan, however a 2-seat model was sold in very limited numbers in select markets as a commercial vehicle. Many of these have since had a conversion to accommodate a rear bench, if so that you'll find that it'll only have 5 seats. Whilst most markets have a Discovery from 2017, some will have to wait until 2018 for official exports. Used buyers wanting the best deal on a purchase price will want to look up to 2020. During the 2021 refresh, JLR made it clear that the Discovery 5 was moving upmarket. A forced decision, as the new Range Rover and Range Rover Sport were moving up in price considerably from the previous generation, and so the Discovery would need to fill the gap between the lower trim Defender and entry model Range Rovers. Due to this shift, sales weakened further. The Discovery was already vulnerable, as not only were new competitors beginning to be shown in concept form, like the latest Toyota Land Cruiser, but the newer chassis of the Defender and Range Rover split most buyers that walked into a Land Rover showroom. Just 4% of annual JLR sales are for the Discovery. This has kept residual values higher on the 2022 models onwards, as fewer were sold, but interest in the used market is marginally higher than new. Note that if the rear styling of the Discovery 5 isn't for you, there are companies that can change it. Now, for every time you've heard, if you want to go to the Outback, take a Land Rover, and if you want to come back, take a Land Cruiser, here's a Disco 5 towing a land train in the Outback. Not bad. If you were wondering how long the Discovery 5 has left, well, the SVX model, first shown in 2017, that could have been released to attract a few enthusiast sales, was mothballed never to return in 2019 before sales began. The Discovery does remain the only car to use the D7U platform, and in 2024 JLR announced the Discovery 6 will use the MLA platform, the same as under the new Range Rover. This is almost certainly because the brand wants several fully electric cars available in 2026, and it appears the new Discovery will be one of them. Limiting the lifespan of the Discovery 5, with Euro 7's restrictions coming in July 2025, the brand may make the decision then to end production. For those of you holding out some hope for some last great iteration of the Discovery for 2025, I'm sorry to say that the brand has made it clear this generation will exit the stage in a shadow, not a spotlight. The Defender Octa, a high-performance model being designed by the SVO department, has taken up the brand's development time. The next Discovery is likely to get something special though, with mentions of a Halo Discovery, but for now, if you want a special Discovery 5, it looks like you'll need to build it yourself. A quick side bit of information for viewers of the miles driven: the Discovery 5 was only built in the UK for 2017 and 2018. 2019 onwards are built by our friends in Slovakia. A hello to any of you watching. Safety is no great surprise for an SUV weighing 2.1 to 2.4 tonnes. It's a full 5 stars at Euro NCAP in 2017, with 90% score for adult occupancy, although this rating has since expired. Next up are the common faults, and a reminder to subscribe if you're enjoying the video, and new channel memberships are open if you'd like to support the work of the channel. First up on the checklist, make sure that the seal around the windscreen is uninterrupted and clear of water. It is best to check on the inside of the car. A repeated complaint was either that after the windscreen replacement or even from factory, the seals were not perfect, allowing water ingress behind the dash. Fortunately, it's not a widespread problem, but certainly something you want to check for on any used buy no matter the age. If unsure, lift the underseat area air vent out from the carpet and touch the frame underneath. It shouldn't be damp. On a test drive, make sure that you activate both the front and rear parking sensors. The proximity sensors can go awry, especially if they've had a knock before you bought the car. and due to the dimensions of the Discovery, a light tap when parking in the rear corners is not unheard of. Check the interior lights function correctly. One owner faced an issue with the lights in the roof and was without a car for a week as the headlining needed to be removed for an auto electrician to locate a wire that was causing the problem. If buying a 2017 to 2020 model, then the infotainment and software behind the system has had some complaints, and while the majority have been resolved by software updates or reboots, the 2020 onward system seems better so far. There are two rubber D bushes around the front anti-roll bars. These will start to perish with time, but off-road use or high mileage will speed up their wear. If the handling on a used Disco 5 doesn't feel as direct as you thought it would, and there is any movement against the direction you are turning, then these are the likely culprits. Sticking with the suspension, and the Land Rover specialists have a steady income in front suspension arms of the Discovery 5, any knocking from the front suspension is a sign that they need replacing. Owners report this around 5 years of regular vehicle use, although some have reported a shorter lifespan. The air suspension has been robust so far, but recalibration is reportedly needed as they age, and it is worth doing so to keep the system in factory tolerance so it doesn't wear any particular part of the system. The first 3 years of production have had a few notes for door locks failing. This isn't unique to the Discovery, as other JLR models reported this issue. Lock the doors on the key and check all the doors including the tailgate to make sure they have remained locked. If you're buying a diesel model, then be aware of the SCR system. The treatment of the catalytic converters reduces emissions, but specialists report that issues where too much fluid is injected. If you notice the AdBlue fluid runs out quicker than normal or faster than you expect, pay for a specialist to run diagnostics. It could just be a sensor, but leaving the issue will almost certainly damage some of the very expensive emissions equipment. While I did find a few other complaints that were mostly unique to a particular car, I will note that the Disco 5 has had a lot of positive feedback, with a lot of owners enjoying their time with the vehicle and not having any major fault, with a software update when in for servicing being the only exceptional thing to report. The recalls are next, but if you're looking for a Discovery 5 and want a warranty, we'll be adding a link in the description soon to get a quote through the Miles Driven website. Something worth checking out, and that will help fund new projects on the channel. There were 2 recalls in 2018, the first for a potential fuel leak noted on the newly introduced 2-litre petrol Ingenium engine, and in October 2018, a recall N227 was released for a 5-month production window from late 2017 to early 2018 that had an issue with the autonomous emergency braking. There were then 5 recalls in 2021. The first is to correct the fitment of the upper anchor for the rear seatbelt for cars built in October 2020, then a recall for the last V6 diesel models built that needed the nuts and bolts from the manifold to downpipe checking, as some were found to be outside of factory specification. Thirdly, a recall for the occupancy detection sensor missing on several JLR cars built between 2021 and 2022, followed by a recall for the 2019 to 2021 cars due to a manufacturing error in the earthing of the battery on a batch of vehicles. Then finally, a recall for the fuel feed hose assembly that were reported to split on the 2018 to 2019 manufactured vehicles. A single recall followed in 2022 for 2021 to 2022 builds for seatbelt pretensioners. Cars were checked and parts replaced if the seatbelt did not function as intended. There were 2 recalls in 2023 for the 2022 to 2023 cars due to the camshaft carrier oil galleries drilled out of specification, causing an oil leak into the air intake, followed by a recall for the rear door latch that may not lock in place when the door is closed. The final recall in 2024 was for a defective oil filter housing in the 2023 to 2024 vehicles. The oil filter housing was at risk of cracking on some cars built in this time and so was replaced. Now onto the engines, and in the Discovery it's a selection of 2 and 3 litres, but no plug-in hybrid. Although it is worth noting that mild hybrids are added from 2020, all cars are fitted with an 8-speed ZF gearbox. We'll start with the engine that gets the most complaints, the 2-litre Ingenium diesel coded AJ20D that was first introduced in 2015 on the Discovery Sport and Evoque. Either produces 179 or 237 brake horsepower, but eventually leaves the lineup, replaced by the 3-litre across the range in 2021 when the car has an overhaul and refresh. Although by 2019 the sales drop off dramatically. Fuel economy is rated at 33.6 miles per gallon or 8.4 litres per 100 kilometres. Due to this, almost all of the 2-litre diesel engines fitted to the Discovery 5 will be in the period that Land Rover owners have repeated issues with the engine, and most consider this to be an engine to avoid until after 2020. The close coupled DPF is helpful compared to some other JLR models that have the DPF further back, meaning that the heat transfer for regeneration is very challenging, although short journeys on a consistent basis will still mean the DPF can struggle to regenerate. However, if you do a regular commute or like to get away to the nicer scenery whenever you have the chance, then these longer journeys should help avoid the worst from an emissions equipment side. However, this doesn't solve the bigger issue. Look up the word Ingenium on Google, and after the ads you'll find no end of complaints from owners on the engine between 2015 and 2018, with 2019 the start of the rectification, and 2020 really moving the engine to become what it should have always been. Timing chain failure, timing guides, turbos and oil dilution are all widely reported from 2015 to 2018, and while I've gone into depth on several guides, the simplest course of action for the 2-litre diesel is either to avoid the 2017 and first half of 2018 built models, or really this is strongly advised as the best option, get a warranty that will specifically cover engine failure due to timing chain or timing chain guide failure that is not caused by age. Another preventative is simply to accept the cost of a timing chain replacement upon purchase, but while this may fit a more robust chain, it won't solve the larger causes of problems in the engine's design. The Discovery's weight doesn't help here, and failures on both the Discovery Sport and Discovery are not uncommon, while Jaguars seem to have a bit better reputation. The bigger SUVs demand more from the engine, likely the reason Land Rover decided the best option was to drop it entirely in place of the 3-litre that was not only a newer design, but much less stressed, and anecdotally, owners report fuel economy to be within 15% when they moved from the 2-litre to the lower powered 3-litre. The second of the 2-litre options is the AJ20P. This is the petrol Ingenium making 296 brake horsepower with an official average of 25.8 miles per gallon or 10.95 litres per 100 kilometres. This has become a bit of a favourite among some owners, although fuel costs, which indicate a real-world fuel economy less than the official figures, do deter others. I have mentioned time and time again on these guides that while many internet commentators write this engine off simply because it is a 2-litre Ingenium, owners are not suffering the myriad of issues like the diesel. However, saying that, the first engines, possibly offered in 2018, depending on your market, have had some reports of VVT solenoids, timing chains and turbos, but most were early on and under warranty, and after the first year of production, the initial issues are very rare to hear. This is because while the 2-litre diesel Ingenium was rushed out in 2015 to meet upcoming Euro 6 emission laws, the petrol arrived in late 2017 and into 2018, benefiting from the additional R&D time needed and being put through its paces in a wider breadth of challenges during development, as while the engine was always destined to go in the Discovery and Range Rovers, meaning it needed torque delivery for an over 2-ton SUV, it was also going into the F-Type and Jaguar XE, where it would need to fulfill a more sporting use case. All of this appears to have resulted in a good engine. If commentators tell you differently, ask owners. One criticism though is that it lacks the smoothness of the V6 and has a punchier power delivery than the older V8 and V6 engines from previous models that allows you to ease in power better while off-roading. So if you've got a V8 or V6 petrol Discovery 3 model that seem to go on forever, be ready for a change in how you modulate the power. Next to the V6 engines, note that both are discontinued in 2020 as the Ingenium Straight 6 models arrive. First, the AJ126 3-litre supercharged V6 engine, sold from launch badged SI6 and producing 335 brake horsepower with fuel economy of 26 miles per gallon on the older, less accurate NEDT test cycle. That's 10.86 litres per 100 kilometres. For North Americans, this model will be much more familiar than most of the other early options, and while it does have higher running costs in fuel, the engine was not only well understood, but well refined by the time it reaches the Discovery 5. Check there isn't oil on the alternator and there isn't a chirp from the supercharger pulley, and you've covered 90% of the main complaints. As these are some of the oldest models, it's worth taking it to a specialist for a thorough service and refresh of any sensors or ancillary parts that look worn after you purchase the car. The main reason for this is that these engines are reliable but can suffer from the knock-on effect of one worn component affecting others. If you've got an older V8 or V6 and can find one of these for sale, you'll likely have the replacement you've been looking for. Then there is the V6, more common for Europeans and Australians, the AJ-V6D, that had been around in one form or another for more than 15 years in Land Rovers and has an original architecture older than that. This diesel engine is related to the older 2.7 TDV6 in the Disco 3 and 3-litre SDV6 in the Disco 4. It has a large following due to its 254 brake horsepower, an official 31.5 miles per gallon or 8.9 litres per 100 kilometres, making it one of the best all-round choices for many. Note, oil dilution issues are widely resolved with an update in 2019, but owners on forums have had this update applied for 2017 and 2018 cars. The main drawback is the reports of crankshaft failure from the early Discovery models. However, looking at the Discovery 5 owner reports and specialists, it appears that at least for now, the Discovery is better. but not perfect. Owners that have suffered the failure appear to have done so with lower mileage, sub 30,000 miles or 50,000 kilometers. There was talk of Ford's solution of a strengthened crankshaft being used for 2019, but I can't see anything official on this, although the failures I found reported were for 2017 and 2018. The answer here is warranty. Just check all the major engine components are covered. Many people will wrongly tell you that a design flaw can be excluded from a warranty, which would mean an onerous contract where the purchase party would need at least an intermediary mechanical engineering knowledge to understand what they are purchasing. This in a world where, while researching for this, I came across forum posts from people not knowing what engine they had in their Discovery, just that it was the smaller one. However, that does not stop warranty companies stating a specific exclusion of a part, like a crankshaft, whether it was manufactured of chocolate or space-grade titanium. Years ago, I actually had a warranty option when selling cars that were graded, the usual bronze, silver and gold nonsense you'll know from car sales desk. Fun times, but read them as barely worth it, super for a Corolla, and great for the rest, and you'll have a better idea of what warranty to buy. Now the late straight six engines. The Petrol coded AJ300, either badged P300 or P360, with near corresponding power, has an average official economy of 25.9 miles per gallon or 10.9 litres per 100 kilometres. The first thing to note here is that you may hear some whirring at low speeds due to the mild hybrid system belt-driven starter generator. This noise is normal, but shouldn't be intrusive. As this will be a relatively new and under warranty, it does limit the scope of what's being reported, but any noise from the transfer case that sounds similar to a drill at any point on test drive should make you walk away. This is rare, but owners have been without a car for extended periods of time if they faced this issue, mainly due to the part supply that has got better, but I can only go off what there are from limited reports, and most owners have been happy so far. Then the diesel coded AJ300D, either badged D240, D300 or D350, with power aligned to the naming, and getting the economy most wanted from a Discovery with an officially rated 33.4 miles per gallon or 8.46 litres per 100 kilometres, and owners appear to agree with this figure. The first of these are just coming out of warranty, but again looking at reports from owners so far, most have been content with only a few initial problems after delivery. One note I did find is that the local dealer made or broke the ownership experience if there was a minor issue. This aligns with my own experience working at a car dealer. I sold countless new cars when I worked for a dealer, and some did return within a few weeks, usually with a faulty sensor. A batch of bad sensors once saw me walking home for a week, as I kept giving my customers my own demonstrator vehicle so they had transport. These customers returned when their leases came up, but some dealers aren't so accommodating. For a multitude of reasons, some legitimate, some questionable, if you buy from a good dealer, then mild inconveniences will remain just that, and that is what I found reported on both Ingenium straight six engines. Small problems, most sorted during a service or warranty diagnostic and update. For our picks then, well, as a budget buy, the 2019 V6 diesel seems to give a lot and carry the least risk of a major issue, but on a higher budget, either Ingenium straight six engine seems a great choice. Next up on the channel, why not check on the guides for the L405 Range Rover or L494 Range Rover Sport, or how about the long-standing competitor, the Volvo XC90.